Chainsaw Man fans, rejoice! We got such a fantastic opening sequence. I don't think we could have asked for anything more. And by now, I'm sure you've seen all the tweets and videos that go over the different movie references in the opening. But because this is Serena in 2D, we are going to look deeply into this and go beyond just the surface level reading. I will be listing off the different movie references because I'm sure you haven't caught all of them, but we're also going to look deeply into how Makima is portrayed. We're going to be talking about some classic depictions of hell and the lyrics of the song and how that mashes up really well with the imagery. While I already feel like the opening sequence spoils a lot from the series, I am going to say that this video has mild spoiler warnings. I don't go too in depth about the different big moments in Chainsaw Man, but if you want to go in blind into the anime, I understand, and maybe go watch my previous Chainsaw Man video instead. But let's hurry up and get started because we have a lot to talk about. Starting off strong, we have a Dante's Inferno reference. Originally, I thought this was a Paradise Lost reference because we saw a similar image in Makima's room towards the end of the series. It turns out this is the same artist, Gustave Doré, but this piece is from Dante's Inferno from Canto 22. This scene depicts a sinner diving away from a demon that is trying to torture him. And this connects back to an overall theme in Chainsaw Man of trying to avoid pain. And of course, we see how Denji's avoidant tendencies lead to some unfortunate events involving Makima. But let's keep going because it's this next part that I find really interesting. These aren't just any sinners. These sinners are corrupt politicians and civil servants. Now, I hope that you did not read Chainsaw Man and think that somehow it's non-political, because it very much is. It is corrupt politicians that led to Makima becoming who she is, and that's something that Kishibe makes very clear. Also, when we look at civil servants, the public safety devil hunters are civil servants. These sinners are boiling in a sticky substance that is used to represent how grubby and greedy they were when they were alive. And Chainsaw Man loves to explore greed. Everybody wanting more, and whether this is a good or a bad or maybe even a neutral thing. Another interesting fact that weaves in so well with Chainsaw Man is that Cantos 21 and 22 are the only intentionally comical sections of Dante's Inferno, known for including gross out humor like fart jokes. Tragedy meets gross out humor. That's a perfect fit for Chainsaw Man. And here is where I list off all of the different movie and anime references. If you didn't already know, Tatsuki Fujimoto, the creator of Chainsaw Man, is a huge cinephile, and he was heavily involved in the production of Chainsaw Man. So I'm sure he's listing off a lot of his favorite films. One interesting thing I find about a lot of these films is that they include characters that wear business attire. Some of the biggest moments happening while they're wearing their suit and tie, and we know how the public safety division, that's what they wear. And so it looks iconic, clean, and it just is a great contrast to the messy work that they do. Now let's talk about Makima. We see her in front of the backdrop of what seems to be the African savannah. Denji starts to approach her almost in an animalistic way. But is he really the predator in this scene? And if you look at Denji's hand, you'll see an ant. There's still some debate over what type of ant this actually is. Some people believe it might be a honeypot ant or a slave maker ant, but it most likely ties into the theme of control. When we cut back to Denji and Makima, we see that Denji is covered in Venus flytraps and mushrooms. Mushrooms are very phallic, and Venus flytraps are very vulvic. Linking Makima with something that is feminine and predatory, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we can connect Denji to the rising mushrooms that we see in this scene. Denji also appears to have a emerald cockroach wasp on his head, also known as a jewel wasp. And these wasps are, you guessed it, parasites, taking control of cockroaches and sometimes even using their antennas as a leash. Perfect for Makima and Denji. Wow, so the next scene we have so much going on. In the background, we hear the lyrics build up to, I want to hold in my hand what's inside your chest, or also heart, but wanting to grasp something that's inside someone's chest. Doesn't that remind us of someone? Intertwined with that, we have these scenes of Makima in her trench coat, making the classic director's pose, lining up her scene. This works on so many levels. Makima has her various attacks where she utilizes hand poses. And directors, of course, are in control of the show. And then we see what she's wearing. She's wearing the trench coat from the scene where we realize, as the audience, that Makima is far more than what she seemed. Projected onto Makima, it seems like we see a nature documentary. And intertwined with all this, we see some odd-looking snails. These snails are infected by a worm that controls the snail, creating these hypnotic patterns on its eyes. And these circular patterns that we see on these snails' eyes definitely remind us of Makima's eyes. This is just such a clever allusion to Makima. The staff really went in on these details and I absolutely love it. And just like with the snails, Denji isn't actually Makima's final goal. Another detail I really like is how Denji looks a little bit apprehensive. The closer the snail becomes to his face, we can see he looks a little bit worried, like he's questioning whether or not he should trust Makima. And in the scene where we see the chainsaw emerging from his head and the blood coming from his nose, maybe hinting at some perverted thoughts, he looks nervous. And I love how we zoom in on the hypnotized eyes of the snails as we get closer to Makima's eyes, and then we see the blood splatter behind her. Then we're greeted with a bombastic fight scene. We see Denji getting thrown all over the place, and while it's great for comedic effect, one little detail that we see here is that we see the initials CSM, Chainsaw Man, spelled out with his indentions in the ground and in the buildings. Next, we see as Denji bursts forth from a devil's body. And this seems to be a reference to Evangelion, to the fight between Eva Unit 1 and Leliel, or Leliel, I can't really tell. And as a side note, I love this style change too. It's much looser and it feels crazy, chaotic. It's so fitting for the scene. And the sunset helps us focus in on the glowing eye. Alright, this giant golden ball is a Fight Club reference, and I think that's so much fun. Especially when we see how Denji and Power were thinking the same thing and were able to be inspired from their bowling trip. I love how we get to see intellectual Power with her glasses. As a side note, golden ball can mean kintama, which is used to refer to testicles, and so that can be also though a good luck symbol because it's associated with tanuki. I'm not sure if that's what they were going for, but that is where my mind went. I don't know what that says about me. But hey, it is pretty fitting when we consider what Denji gave up for money earlier in the series. When we cut to Denji in the kitchen with his sloppily tied apron, he cracks the egg incorrectly. His mind almost seems a bit lost in thought. And then we cut to Door-kun, everyone's favorite door. You know, if you watch Chainsaw Man or read Chainsaw Man, you're gonna become door-phobic. Here's another moment in the lyrics that I really love and how well it matches up with what's happening in the scene. As Denji is cracking the egg incorrectly, we hear the vocals saying, "Feels like I've forgotten something." And then of course we quickly cut to the door. Denji doesn't just try to suppress his emotions, but he's also created a habit of suppressing his memories, specifically the one involving his father. I love seeing Power do that cool guy walking away from the explosion thing. And this could be a reference to Tatsuki Fujimoto's other works that also include this scene. Then we see this collage style art that's bound together with our characters, some standing and some sitting. This is a reference to a popular meme art, and I could not find the artist to save my life. If anyone knows who created this piece of artwork, please let me know. But usually it's about how knowledge can expose you to some unpleasant truths. Our two most childlike characters are frolicking in their memories of the past, and we can see their faces. But with Aki and Makima, they're facing the future, facing the more harsh realities, it seems. And our boy Aki is covered in snow. That broke my heart when I saw that. Aki almost seems like he's staring off into some war-torn wasteland, and it looks a bit like World War I or World War II, and we know that that could connect back to the story. But Makima is staring off into what seems like some kind of dark abyss, maybe hinting at her mysterious plans for the future. I've mentioned this in previous videos, especially on my TikTok before, but Fujimoto is always touting the importance of education. So I find it interesting that they tied in this meme about educating yourself and how that can expose you to some things that aren't very pleasant. The Future Devil was jamming. I love that they show that. The Future Devil is so playful. When I went back and reread it, I was wondering, how is he going to sound? I hope they have some stellar voice acting for him, but in the meantime, it is great seeing him having a good time. Almost like he's ready to laugh at our cast, who are about to be thrown into some awful tragedy. The scene with the ghost devil as she appears is so uncomfortable. I absolutely love it. Katana Man is standing with a bunch of swinging pendulums, and it looks like some victim underneath it because we see a bit of a blood splatter. And next up, of course, everyone's favorite part, Dingy and Power dancing. What I love about this scene, other than it just being so much fun, is that it reminds me of the scene where Dingy and Aki are beating up Katana Man. Aki decides to be a party pooper and like summons Khan, like, okay. This opening sequence is fantastic and I hope it becomes iconic. There's so much going on and it's so much fun. It feels like such a celebration of cinema, of Chainsaw Man as a whole, and just for the fandom as well. It feels very fan servicey. Thank you for making it to the end, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you know me, then you know that I will not shut up about Chainsaw Man, so you should make sure to follow me if you want to see more Chainsaw Man related content. And I'm sure a couple of you who haven't read Chainsaw Man did watch this video, and I hope I didn't spoil too much, but I hope you enjoy the ride. This is going to be fantastic. I am excited for so many scenes that are going to be animated, and I fully trust MAPPA to give it a fantastic adaptation. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!